awesome. Welcome, my lords, to the Well-Earned Comforts podcast. I'm Sam.
And I'm Seth.
Thank you for joining us on the Walls of Isengard as we explore the many works of Tolkien and discuss life. We're glad to have you as part of the fellowship, as there's no telling where we'll be swept off to, and it is Christmas time. Almost merry almost Christmas to you, Seth, and to all our listeners out there. I hope you guys are getting all your very favorite Tolkien gifts for your friends and your families. The best gift that you can give is a recommendation to listen to our podcast. I think that's really the best gift you can give this Christmas season.
I mean, think about the endless hours. Think about the endless hours of joy that would bring to them. Just a
absolute bliss between. I completely agree. Yeah, so keep that in mind as you're giving away your gifts this Christmas season. But as always, we're going to babble like Butterbur for a little bit, catch up. It's been, again, about another month and a half since we've podcasted. So I'll check in with my brother Seth over in Michigan. How's it going? You guys got any snow? Is it winter wonderland over there yet?
Nah, and this is actually a bone I have to pick. I mean, when we moved here, everybody's like, you're going to hate it. It's cold and snowy all the time and this and that. I mean, Colorado's already been hit with, what, like 3 or 4 snowstorms from what it sounds like?
Yeah.
I mean...
It snowed pretty good when we were out there.
That's awesome. We've seen a couple of dustings. It's like 50 and sunny today. Not that this is normal, but it's just like, seriously, it's almost Christmas. This is like the time of year where I just want, like, I live close enough to work that I could get to work no matter what. Like, give me feet of snow. Yeah. Like, give me 3 feet. I just want to feel the, like, you know, the season's jolliness, if you will. Like, yeah, I love snow, and it's a bone to pick at the moment. And the forecast says no snow for us, unfortunately, but maybe that'll change. I mean, one can hope, right?
Fingers crossed. Yeah.
How about you guys? I know that you're probably not getting any snow, but is it at least feeling like Christmas or close to it?
Yeah, in the mornings, you know, it's nice and cold. Yesterday I went on a run in the morning around 6:30 and it was about 24 degrees. So I had to bundle up a little bit for that, nice and crisp. But then by the end of the day, like midday, it was like 50 degrees and sunny. And so, yeah, it's one of those just like, you get tastes of it, but not what I'd want for sure. And I don't think we're going to get snow for Christmas. We got it last year, surprisingly, in Kentucky. But yeah.
It's pretty rare though, right? In Kentucky, it's pretty rare.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll get probably 2, maybe 3 tops, like snowfalls. I say snowfall, like an inch and a half, maybe.
Yeah.
So,
man, we took Evelyn to meet Santa for the first time last night. Here in Midland, there's like an absolutely stunning Santa house that they just leave all like year round, and they open it, you know, every night during, you know, like a 2-3 week span right before Christmas so that the kids can come and meet Santa. And it's just a magical house. There's, you know, toy trains everywhere. There's elves hanging from the ceiling. There's all kinds of lights, and it's beautiful. And Amanda and I got there. It opened at 6. We got there at 5:30. We were like, hopefully it's not, you know, going to be too long of a line. And this was on a Thursday night. This was last night. And we still, like, we waited 30 minutes because we got there early, and we still had to wait like another 30 minutes just to get in. And this is just the local thing that they do for free. We put, I think Mom and Dad got it for us, but we put Evelyn in this little black and red dress, and she had a red bow in her hair, and she was just
picture. That was super cute.
She's just so adorable, and she loved it. I don't know that she cared for Santa all that much, but she was just, she wasn't upset. She just was like, who the heck are you and why are you holding me? But she loved looking around at everything, and she was pointing, and then like nodding and saying, please, I want it. Please. It's like, no, you can't grab the nutcracker. I'm sorry. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. You can kind of, at least up here, it seems like people take Christmas more seriously than they did back home. I don't know if that's because it's more of a winter state, even though Colorado is too, but so many more people put up their lights and go all out. And it's just, it does feel like, you know, the Christmas spirit. We really could use some snow.
Right. That's a good point. That's a really good point. I think people, because I felt that way out here, even like with the lights and decorations. I think for how fit Colorado is, I think they're just lazy when it comes to this kind of stuff. You know, I think it's just like, it's too expensive to live out there anyway. We're not going to spend more money on lights, like
electricity, lights. Yeah, that's maybe.
I don't know. I just pulling that in my butt, but Yeah, no, it is weird. Like we got lots of decorations around our street. It's so fun driving in. You got some like really classy looking houses, and
Yeah,
then just some like crazy tacky looking
with like
houses,
the
and
blow up.
those are my favorite, honestly.
You like the tacky
Oh
ones?
yeah. Oh, I love them. Yeah, we have just down the street it's got to be a 30-foot snowman inflatable. Like it almost goes to the top of their house.
Oh
It's
my God.
crazy.
What's
Takes up
the
their entire
point?
front lawn.
What's the point of that?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Oh man,
But it looks cool. It looks cool.
that's wild. How's Baron doing? Does he have you gone to where like he can see the lights and it, like I know he's still little, but does it catch his view and he like focuses in on him, or is he still a little bit young
Yeah.
to do that?
No, he's very bright-eyed and likes looking around, kind of like Evie, like you mentioned. We took him to Colorado over Thanksgiving and went to Estes Park for the Christmas parade, like we always do. And so some of the floats driving by, and it was cold, man. It was like 12 degrees. It was flurrying. We got him in like a snowsuit. It was super cute. And so he was awake for like half of it. Then he just ended up falling asleep. But he was looking at him for a little bit. Like he would follow him and then go to the next one. And then just recently we we have like our little Christmas tree lighting ceremony here in our little town of Georgetown, which
cool.
I love. Like that's like living in a small town, you get that. Like there wasn't anything like that in Colorado. But we have this tree that's in Main Street and everything shuts down. Santa gets on this fire truck and he gets above the tree and on the tree to make it light up, and it lit up before the dust hit the tree because they didn't time it right. But you know, it was still like we took him and he was hanging out with us. He ended up falling asleep for that too, and then actually woke up and started screaming. So I don't think he actually really liked that one.
Naturally, but still, like just the experience of being able to take him and you're like I don't know. I keep telling Amanda this, but being a parent is perpetually like a tug of war between I want time to freeze and never move past this moment, and I also want to skip ahead a few years so that I can experience this with my child when they can get excited, when they know what's going on, as opposed to just like being along for the ride. But I don't want to wish away any of the time that I have currently, you know?
Sure.
And I'm sure you felt that
it's so
the same. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is. Like even just for like Christmas, we put up the tree and he likes seeing the lights and stuff up on the tree, but you know, we're getting him like his first ornament that we're picking out for him, but we can't wait for him to pick out his own ornaments.
Yeah.
And again, these are traditions that I've kind of picked up from Ariel's family that I always kind of laughed at growing up. Like, it's not going to be fun. Like, I'm not going to do that with my kids, but and here we are, and it's actually a really good time. But we just got him a stocking because we were like, well, crap, he doesn't have a stocking, so we just got like just a mini tiny little stocking from Walmart with the Snoopy logo on it. We were like, this has no like meaning to him, but like when he's old enough to pick his own, we'll do that, or we'll do like a family one or something. I don't know, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Cool. It's like I want him to understand what's so fun about this, but at the same time, I just want to like hold the cute little snuggly 4-month-old.
There's something about just like holding them up to you when they have no idea what's going on and you're talking to them and pointing and just, oh, it's so magical. And they're just like, okay.
Yeah.
They're still like right up against you. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh man, that's cool.
Pretty cool. Yeah. It's been a fun time. It's been a fun holiday season for us. Sounds like it has been as well for you guys.
Yes, indeed.
Are you getting bogged down with like schoolwork and everything else? Do you have like finals going on right now, or is it off semester?
I just finished this last week, so done with 1 out of 9 semesters until I graduate with my master's. But
brother,
it'll be a process, but one's done, so that's all I can ask. I'm happy that it's done and not really looking forward to the next semester, but it's one of those things that you do because you have to, not necessarily because you want to. But
absolutely.
Now,
I hear that.
We podcasted right after you technically graduated, right? Yeah. Okay. I was going to say, because you just graduated.
Yeah, I graduated November 5th.
Okay. That's right.
And then I just got my diploma in the mail like last week.
Well, I mean, the wall behind you is blank. Like, I see.
You're saying I need to put up.
Yeah.
You're saying I need to put up my diploma like right behind
right over your shoulder.
Yeah.
No.
I don't know about that. No, I'm probably not. I should put something up here. Ariel's got a lot of paintings that we can put up here, but
sometimes I wish I could flip around my setup so that instead of seeing like the library, because I've got a map of Balerion up here to my left and a map of Middle Earth, and I wanted to put them,
Right.
so that they were accurate and like where they were in the
That's cool.
legendarium, but they're just level. But it'd be a
Maybe,
cool
like,
background.
I was gonna say you can maybe like take a picture of that, then upload it and have it as like a background for you. I don't know.
That'd be a bit of a stretch, I think.
Yeah, perhaps. Well, we are super excited to be back podcasting again. Talking about Tolkien is one of my favorite things to do. I think it's the same for Seth as well. And so before we jump into meat and potatoes, Tidings and Fellowship, all that kind of stuff, we're going to jump into Riddles in the Dark like we always do,
shoot.
finding some dialogue from our 3-in-1 Lord of the Rings book that we have and seeing if the other person can guess what the context is and who is talking, and maybe even a chapter name, even though Seth says he's not very good at chapters. But we'll just flip through here. You want me to go first, or you got something?
I actually found something.
Okay.
This is actually kind of a cool. This is actually kind of a cool one. I think you might have fun with this one.
Okay.
All right, you ready? Here we go. Where now are the Dunedain, LSR? Why do the kinsfolk wander afar? Would you like me to continue?
Well, so this is where it gets tricky, because in the movie, this is Elrond speaking in the Return of the King, like, as they're reforging the sword, that whole montage thing. I'm pretty sure.
Is this a movie?
No, it's not. That's the issue.
Exactly.
But I want to say this is actually in the. Wait, say it one more time.
Where now are the Dunedain, LSR? Why do thy kinsfolk wander afar? Near is the hour when the lost should come forth, and the grey company ride from the north.
Okay. Yeah, isn't that then where it is still Return of the King in the book still? Is it Elrond speaking?
No.
Let
me give you another little bit from a little further away. In happy hour you have returned to us, blank, cried the dwarf.
Yeah, so that's the Grey Company is when they take off to go Path of the Dead, and he's got like Elrond's brother or sons with them, right? Arwen's brothers. And so, man, I'm struggling to picture where it would be, because it wouldn't be. It wouldn't be Paths of the Dead, right? Like, that's not the
no.
chapter of it. Okay. Is it the Passing of the Grey Company? I assume.
No. It's not even in the Return of the King.
Yikes.
Who would be saying it?
I really thought it was Elrond, but maybe it's Gandalf.
Let me read you a couple sentences before, and you'll nail it. That's okay. Healing I found, and I was clothed in white. Counsel I gave, and counsel took.
Okay.
Thence by strange roads I came, and messages I bring to some of you.
Yeah.
To Aragorn I was bidden to say this.
Shoot. Yeah, that's Gandalf the White returning in Two Towers when they're in Fangorn Forest, and
Bingo.
That's dumb. I can't believe it took me that long.
I tried giving you the part with Gimli, because Gimli's like, "Hey, what about me? Didn't like she say anything about me?"
Right. Yeah. That's where. That was maybe more confusing than helpful. So
yeah, my bad. That was a hard one.
Okay. Yeah, it was. Let me see. I got something here. If that isn't the very tree you hid behind when the Black Rider first showed up, Mr. Frodo, it seems like a dream now.
Oh, shoot.
There's really not a lot going on there to choose from, but we'll see what you got.
That's gotta be Sam, obviously, talking to Frodo.
Sure. Yep.
And
I gave that away.
Well, yeah. I want to say that it's, I don't know the name of the chapter, but it's when they're riding. Okay, so it's either when they're riding back to Bag End, or it's after Sauron is killed, and he's going with Frodo to the Grey Havens. Am I right about either of those?
I was gonna ask, which one do you think it is? Because
I think it's
yes,
the latter.
you are right.
I think
about
it's
one
the
of them.
latter. I think it's when they're going back to the Grey Havens.
That's pretty impressive. That's very impressive. Wow, I'm amazed. I really am. I gotta brush up on my book reading. I
know
guess,
these stories. I'm telling you, the
yeah,
audiobook. Throw it on to go to sleep to, and just put on a sleep timer for 10 minutes, and it's like one of the highlights of my day. Just like crawl in bed, throw it on for 10 minutes, sleep timer. I probably hear about 3 minutes of it, and then I'm out.
We usually do just piano music. I don't think Ariel would go for putting on the entire trilogy, but
I have headphones in.
Maybe. Oh, sure. I can't sleep with headphones in because I'm a side sleeper, so it like smushes my ear in. I don't like it at all.
That's fair. But I mean,
you'll
keep losing. Seth it just depends on how much you want it.
Fair enough. Seth takes the dub again. Well done.
Nothing new.
Claps for Seth. Nothing new there. That's true. Well, we do have a little bit of tidings from the Fellowship. So if you listen to our last podcast, we talked about how the Battle of Sudden Flame, Dagor Bragollach, how that Tolkien wrote that, and how maybe his inspiration for that came from flamethrowers. And I mentioned, I was like, were they even invented World War I during the battle? I don't even know. Thankfully, we have a musician, historian, all the above, Caleb Linville, who commented on our. He can't. Yeah, there's nothing he can't do. But he gave us some insight on that. He said flamethrowers were invented in World War I to break the trenches deadlock on the Western Front. Initially, they were absolutely terrifying. They also had a flamethrower tanks, which were very dragon-like in a way. So it very well it could be like he had a run-in with a flamethrower tank and was like, boom, dragon.
I mean, it could have been that, or he was very deep in legends and myths and stuff. Or it could have been that he was deep in legends and myths, and then the lifelike experience with that, made him be able to articulate it in words. But I think I even mentioned that would have, like, last I almost said last week, but last time, I think I even mentioned like how terrifying it would be to have like a bomb strapped to your back and then running across no man's land in World War I. Like, I'm glad Caleb mentioned that, but man, that had to have been terrifying. And imagine running next to that guy too. Like,
sure, yeah.
You just at any point his tank could get hit, and you and everybody else around is now going up in flame.
Yeah, that would be insane. Thankfully, I hopefully never will have to ever experience that ever. So,
indeed.
But yes, thank you for the thoughts, Caleb. No new reviews or emails or anything like that. So please send them in if you have any thoughts on.
Give us a Christmas
what
present,
we're talking about. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Give us a Christmas. We do a lot of work for you guys, pro bono. I mean, come on. We do spend a good deal of time like putting together the content, and then obviously time spending editing and shooting and all that kind of stuff. But not to make you feel bad. Like, don't do it. Don't give us a pity review. But if you want to send us a gift,
but if it's a 5-star, we'll take a pity review. Is what I'm saying.
Sure, I'll take a 5-star pity review. Absolutely. Please do. Anywhere you listen to your podcast, give us a review. Hit us up on Spotify. We didn't have any any answer to the poll as far as whose fellowship people would take. So I'm just going to assume that people were rolling with my fellowship. We'll just assume that.
I think that poll would have gone the same way as our last Riddles in the Dark.
Okay, well, moving on to the next thing we've got here, we have a Spotify Wrapped, which is cool. So hopefully, if you are listening on Spotify, you've seen us on your Spotify Wrapped. But we got some cool little numbers and just factoids here. I'll go through, and Seth, you can comment on any that seems surprising to you. But our top episode on Spotify. This is just Spotify. This isn't any of our other ones. So, but just on Spotify, our top episode was Children of Hurin, Chapter 1. So people, I guess, really enjoyed us getting into that because it was streamed 234% more than our other episodes. Does that mean our other episodes suck, or was that just a really good episode?
What I want to know is why it dropped off so much after the first episode. That's people being point. Like, wow, yeah, this is a great read along. Let's continue this. No, apparently it dropped off right after that. That's kind of an obscure one, unless people were, really into that particular story. I don't know.
Sure.
What else you got?
Absolutely. Yeah, other things we have here, 83% of our listeners were discovered in 2023. So most of you guys are
Welcome.
new within the first
Welcome.
year. And yeah, welcome. And it was the first chapter of Children Who Are, and that brought you in. 43% of our new listeners came from that, which is kind of interesting, kind of neat. I don't know, again, how Spotify knows all this, but
It's a little weird.
apparently outside of, yeah, a little weird. Apparently outside of the United States, which was 82% of our total streams, we've also streamed in 13 countries, with Australia being the most popular country outside of the United States that we have the most new listeners. So welcome, mates. We are not going to culturally appropriate you. I'm sorry. Why did I do that?
Because it's hilarious. That's why. Welcome to our friends down under.
Yeah. Yes. No kidding. Enjoy New Year's a couple days before us, or like, you know, because like what, 20 hours
couple
ahead of us? I don't know. Anyway, not a couple days. You know what I'm saying? I didn't mean
Maths.
but... Well, who was it? Pippin, I think Billy Boyd said he had his birthday in
New Zealand,
like America, and then when he flew, or yeah, I guess New Zealand, or maybe it's the other way around. I don't even know. But either way, he got to celebrate his birthday twice, because he had his birthday in one of the countries and then went to the other country and had his birthday again because of the time change. But anyway,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. But our top 3 podcast genres from the people who are listening to us is comedy, arts, and true crime. I'd say we're at least one of those. And their top genres are pop, rock, and classical, apparently.
Okay.
So that's what you guys are listening to. But yeah, that's for the most part. We have a lot of shares, a lot of like direct link shares. But the most shared episode we had was concerning Aragorn and Arwen, which is interesting.
Okay, I think that might have been one of my favorite episodes. I really like just their story, and going through it in the appendices was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a really good one. And it's characters that everyone would be familiar with, but just in a deeper level, and you understand their relationship a bit better. Because again, Tolkien is known for, people are like, oh, there's no female characters, there are not any strong female characters, or there's not really much romance, but you just gotta find it. You gotta find it. Our podcast rating on Spotify was 4.8, which is pretty impressive. I assume out of 5, hopefully not out of 10. But so I guess people are rating us on Spotify.
Yeah, thanks, Mom.
But yep, there it is. But yeah, I think that's about it. We've had 32% growth from streams, 80% growth in followers, and 43% growth in minutes created, whatever that means. So yeah,
I mean,
pretty interesting stuff.
I mean, it's not like our podcast gets a ton of views by any means, but to see growth, it's like, hey, that's pretty cool. And we really do appreciate anybody who's listening, even if you haven't written in or left a review. We still appreciate you. And it's
100%.
just, I mean, Sam and I do this to hang out and have fun, but it's cool that we can bring some of you along with us. And it's cool to see that there is a trend in the right direction, at least.
Yes, at least on Spotify. Absolutely. We are a top 10 podcast for 27 fans. So shout out to you guys who made us your top 10 podcasts that you listen to. We're a top 5 for 17 people. So if you're one of those 17, thank you so much for making us a top 5. That is fantastic. But we are the number 1 podcast for 5 of you guys out there on Spotify. So knuckles, kudos, high fives. Thanks
all the
for
things.
doing that.
All the things.
All the things. It's very good. Our top fans listen to us 1.9 times more than any of our other listeners. So well done, you guys. You're the real ones.
Indeed.
But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Let's jump into some lore. Let's go.
Yeah, let's get into it. I'm excited for this week. We are kind of taking a look at some Easter eggs, if you will, of Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. I mean, that's his most famous work, right? Lord of the Rings is what he is known for. It's what most people know about. But we wanted to kind of zoom in and zoom out, if you will. Like zoom into specific moments or areas, but then also zoom out to see what he's actually referencing. And he's referencing a lot of stuff that we've already talked about, in first age stuff, second age stuff, Silmarillion, previous characters, stuff like that. So today we thought it'd be really cool to dive into the Mirror of Galadriel, that whole interaction in the Fellowship of the Ring. When the Fellowship arrives in Lothlorien, this is right after the tragic death of Gandalf in the Balrog. So, our Fellowship is in need of rest. They're sad. They are in need of hope too, and so they go with Aragorn's kind of direction to Lothlorien. And as Frodo and Sam are talking, this is interesting because obviously there's been a lot of stigma about the Lord, or the Lord and Lady of the
Yeah.
Woods. Gimli has his own thoughts. Aragorn's obviously got his thoughts, but
So does
it's interesting
Boromir
that
and all
Sam
the men
actually.
of Gondor.
Yep.
Yep.
Sure. Even Treebeard, actually, as
Yeah.
I was kind of prepping for our next episode, Treebeard even said, like, because I think it was Celeborn said, I wouldn't go to Fangorn, and Treebeard's like, well, I would have said the same about Lothlorien.
Yeah.
Like, don't go there.
I do remember that.
Kind of petty that way. But yeah, so Sam's talking, and it's interesting knowing that he's even heard about him, a simple Shire folk from Bag End. But this is what he says: I wonder we don't see nothing of the Lord and Lady in all these days. I fancy now that she could do some wonderful things if she had a mind. I dearly love to see some elf magic, Mr. Frodo. Which, we've heard that term elf magic, but we don't really have like a category for it. There's not like a junk drawer box where you can open it up and like, this is what elf magic looks like. We've talked about it in the past, like different elves and different abilities that they've had of either foresight or healing things. Like, you look at like Luthien and her ability to like spring things from the ground. It's just kind of a very vague thing, as opposed to like Harry Potter, where it's very, or even like the inheritance cycle, where it's very structured and you have to learn it, you have to know the spells, you have to know the words. It's a lot different. It's vague. I'm curious, like you kind of brought up this question, Seth. Does the fact that Tolkien doesn't really have a system for this magic make it more magical? That was the question that you pondered, so I'll let you answer the question first and I'll get my thoughts.
Well, thanks. I honestly don't know if I have an answer to that. However, I think he does it on purpose, because if you look at his works as a whole, he is so meticulous about every little detail, like to the point where he rewrote certain parts because like in the Fellowship, when they are in Lothlorien and then they're not, and Sam, after they leave, Sam makes a comment like, oh, I can't believe we were there for a whole month, and he references the moon and stuff. Tolkien realized that it didn't line up with his timeline, and he went back and rewrote it so that it would fit. And that's something that like nobody's gonna notice, but to him it mattered.
Sure.
And so for him not to have like a meticulously drawn out and well formulated magic system makes me think that it's intentional. And I think that maybe does make it more magical because he doesn't explain it. In Harry Potter or the inheritance cycle or other, fantasy where the magic system is well developed, it makes sense and the reader goes, okay, so they're using magic. Whereas the way Tolkien does it, it's like, this is just part of these magical beings' normal baseline. And you'll see later on with Galadriel, even she basically says, well, I don't really consider this elf magic, but maybe you do. And so I don't know for sure. There is, I need to read through it a little bit more in depth. I believe it's letter 155. Tolkien talks about it. But I just kind of breezed through it, so I didn't really get a really good feel for what he was trying to say, because Tolkien, sometimes you have to read his stuff 6 or 7 times before it makes sense.
Sure.
At least I do. So I need to look at that a little bit more in depth. But what do you think, Sam?
Well, I'm thinking about like just the different races within Middle Earth, and each one of them has kind of their own shtick, right? Their own magic to them, except for men. Men don't really have a magic. They have a courage. They have like a stature to them. But I mean, at least off the top of my head, through my knowledge, like they don't really have a magic that they can go to. Whereas like the hobbits kind of have their ability to not be seen. Like they can, I mean, maybe that's more of a skill than a magic, but they're still kind of magical beings in a lot of ways. And the dwarves are obviously very magical. And to drop can make you grow really, really tall. That's got to be magical. I mean, I don't know. There's just certain things like, and maybe Tolkien did this on purpose, as he was. I don't know if this was like his trajectory, but he started writing a new, like a follow-up to Lord of the Rings, where it was now kind of, okay, the elves are gone, magic is kind of left, it's just the men now, and it just got really, really dark.
Yeah.
Because
He abandoned it after
obviously,
like 14 pages, I think it was.
yeah, he's like, I can't write this. This is getting too dark and too depressing, because men just kind of destroy everything and they don't have that magic, but they seek it.
Sure.
And I think that's why the ring had such a big pull on Boromir and Isildur and those characters too, because they seek the power that magic has. But yeah, I don't know the reason why it's so mystical. There's certain and it seems almost convenient too. Maybe he left it that way to be like, oh, I can make magic convenient here, like elven cloaks here.
Sure.
You guys can wear those, or like the light of the Valinor, like having the star, the light of the star for Frodo. I mean, there's like convenient little magic pieces in there, but I wouldn't say that's like lazy writing or anything. Obviously, that'd be blasphemy. I can't do that.
Well, I think if anything, Tolkien was not a lazy writer.
Yeah.
So I see what you're saying. Maybe there is an aspect of like, for it to make sense in a well-structured way, he would have just had to derail the story so much because of just how he is.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I can't help.
He would probably. I was just gonna say he'd probably like overutilize it too.
Yeah.
Like you look at even like the wizard people, they have magic they can use, but it's not their main thing. Like,
yeah,
it's not what they're you don't see them doing incredible things with their magic. It's helpful, but it's not like they're overpowered by that means.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I think you're right. Cool.
But it's a good question. Good question that you posed. I appreciate that. So as they're kind of talking about it, Frodo, he's like, I don't really desire to see any of the magic that Sam's talking about. Sam's always loved elves. He's always kind of had that like on wonder for him, and Frodo's just like, I've got enough magic around my neck right now, and I don't need to know what else is going on. Especially now with Gandalf gone, but he's trying to decide like, where's this despair, this void that was left by Gandalf? Like, I don't know, maybe I need to see something. But again, Sam continues talking. He says, yet I hope very much that before we leave, we shall see the Lady of the Elves again. And so he's very intrigued, Sam is, about what she can do and what her powers are, just who she is. And I mean, frankly, so is everybody else. Gimli's smitten with her, and Boromir's afraid of her, and all this kind of stuff. But, obviously Galadriel, she probably has like these, again, magical ears, maybe her elf ears, the pointed ears that are like, oh, I hear you, Sam. I'll help you out. Let me give you a glimpse into some of this elf magic, and walks up to them and beckons them to follow towards the mirror of Galadriel.
Yeah. So a couple of things. I'm trying to just rack my brain. Is Galadriel the only elf aside from Círdan to have been in Valinor previously that's still left? Because she has the light of the Valars, because she lived in Valinor, right? So I wonder if that contributes to it, that even Celeborn, her husband, like, he was born in Middle Earth, he wasn't from Valinor. So I wonder if that contributes to it. I don't know.
I mean, absolutely. I would say that definitely has a piece to play. But yeah, that's a good question. I can't think of anyone else off the top of my head that is mentioned, at least in the trilogy. I mean, I was thinking like Glorfindel, but he was born.
Right? I don't know where he was. He might have been of the Noldor originally.
He was reborn into Middle Earth, right? So it wasn't like he, in that form that he was when we see him in the trilogy, had ever been to Valinor. But I don't know.
Yeah. And then secondly, this is just kind of a fun question. As we move forward with this, I saw the movies first before I read the books. So as I visualize this in my head, I'm visualizing Peter Jackson's, idea of how this went down. Are you the same way, or do you, like, when you read this, are you picturing Tolkien's? Like, is it fresh in your imagination, Tolkien, the way Tolkien describes it, or is it the way your interpretation of Peter Jackson?
It's a bit of both, if that makes sense. Like, I use, I guess, maybe the set of Peter Jackson, kind of the visuals of that, but then where Tolkien fills in a lot more gaps than Peter Jackson ever could. especially with Sam too, because I don't even think he goes up to look at the mirror at all with Galadriel in the movies. So
I don't think he
I'm pretty sure
does.
Peter Jackson left that out completely. So, you kind of have to create an imagination for what he's thinking, and
Sure.
again, Tolkien does a great job of making that easy to imagine for me. So it's a bit of both. I really try hard, like when I do read Lord of the Rings, to just kind of create my own imagination for it. I mean, there's certain things that I just, certain characters are just going to look the way they do because of Peter Jackson, right?
Sure.
I mean, I think Viggo Mortensen's a fantastic Aragorn. I think, we'll leave it at that. I think like Sean Austin's an incredible Sam. I like to look at Frodo a bit older and a bit more wise than what we see in Peter Jackson, because he was, a lot older, and Elijah Wood was what, like 19, 20 maybe when they filmed. So I don't know. And Legolas is a little bit different. He's a bit more ethereal, but not cheesy ethereal. I don't know.
That's fair. All right.
That's a good question. What about you?
I was just curious. Like I said, I think it's more of the Peter Jackson version of it from how I picture it in my head. But
sure.
All right. Well, that's just kind of a fun thought exercise as we go forward into this story, because you've probably seen the exact scene that we're going to talk about with the Mirror of Galadriel, and it's like this incredible scene in the movies, and I think Peter Jackson, he missed some things that I wish he wouldn't have, but at the same time, he encapsulated what Tolkien was getting at, and actually did it very well. So anyways, Tolkien describes this mirror as a basin of silver that was wide and shallow. And what's interesting to me is Galadriel actually fills up her, I don't know, I want to say a basin again, but a vase maybe, and pours it in there. But before pouring it into the basin to create the mirror, she actually breathes on it. And I never noticed that until reading through this time, that it's not until she breathes on the water that it becomes, magical, I guess. So is this just her, her magical ability? Is it just that, I don't know. It's interesting to me.
It is a very interesting detail. Again, one that you'd think Tolkien would expound on, like he would explain why she had to breathe on it, but he doesn't. And again, maybe there is just that idea, like this is a being from Valinor. This is one of the oldest beings on Middle Earth at this point in time. She just
does inexplicable things.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Or maybe there's part of her that still is connected to that, heavenly realm, if you will, and can bring that to Middle Earth, and just through breath or like whatever's on the inside, kind of like that. Because I hate that. Well, I don't hate it, but every time I feel like I talk, I go back to scripture when it comes to this kind of stuff. But God had to breathe things into existence, right? Like that. I mean, he didn't have to, but that's what we see is like his spirit was hovering over. And then when he spoke, he breathed things into existence. Yahweh literally means breath, right? And so, I don't know, that makes me think maybe there's power in that for a very powerful being to be able to create, to be able to, in the same way that a wizard would utter a spell, she can just breathe it. I don't know.
Yeah, interesting. And another thing that I found interesting about this is, and again, I listened to the audiobook, so I never noticed this until now when I was actually going through line by line in the book, but Tolkien capitalizes mirror. It's the mirror of Galadriel, and it's capitalized. And so it's like, okay, so the mirror is its own entity. It's a name. It's not just a mirror, a random mirror, but it's its own thing. And I guess just with the combination of Galadriel's breath and how magical it is from the start, I don't know, maybe she learned how to craft it in Valinor under the tutelage of Aule. Who knows?
That'd be cool.
Anyways, that's going way off the deep end here, but Galadriel walks up to the two hobbits because, like Sam mentioned, her ears were kind of ringing. She's like, all right, you want to see some elf magic? Come on. And so I'm just going to quote it, and it's a beautifully said by Tolkien here. He says, from Galadriel's perspective, many things I can command the mirror to reveal, and some I can show what they desire, but the mirror will also show things unbidden. And those are often stranger and more profitable than things that we wish to behold. What will you see if you leave the mirror free to work? I cannot tell. For it shows things that were, and things that are, and things that may yet be. But which is it that he sees? Even the wisest cannot always tell. Do you wish to look? So, again, it's like, she's leaving the mirror up to being its own entity, even though she's the one that breathed life into it. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and it also kind of reminds you of like a Palantir in that sense of, like a thing, an object that can produce something that you can see. But I love how she says it as it is. Like I have some control over it, but it can do its own thing, and it's going to change, but depending on who's looking at it. So do you want to look? Like, because you will see things that you might want to see, but then you're going to see things that you wish you would never have seen. Probably is kind of how she's putting it.
So that begs the question: you're in Sam and Frodo's perspective. You're in their shoes. You're like, cool, I'll take a peek. Why not? Are you letting the mirror be free to do what it wants, or are you trying to see something specifically?
I mean, not to skip ahead, obviously Sam's got his own desires of what he wants to see because he cares so much about his hometown, and I feel like I'd probably be the same way. Like I'm very much a Sam character. I'm a homebody, and especially if I was leaving family behind. Like he had a huge crush on Rosie Cotton, man. I'd be like, hey, what's she's up to? what's my lady up to? But I think it's hard to say because again, some things that have not yet come to pass and may not come to pass. It's like, do I even want to look into that and have that in my brain? Because as we'll see, there's some really dark stuff that they see, and it might make them feel like they've failed. Like there's no point in even going forward, because if what they're about to see is proof that they failed their quest, even if it's not actually like it, that's what it would appear to be, right? Like, so why should we even keep going after seeing something like that?
Well, and Sam honestly feels something similar to that when he sees, the things that he does that you'll get to here in a minute. But I don't know. That's interesting. Yeah. I think I'd probably just let it do its thing personally. I'm so curious that I'd just be like, all right, whatever you've got, I want to see it.
Fair enough.
So yeah, anyways, Galadriel continues and she's talking to them, and she kind of looks at Sam as she says this. She says, "For this is what your folk would call magic, I believe, though I do not understand clearly what they mean. But they seem to use the same word as the deceits of the enemy. But this, if you will, is the magic of Galadriel. Did you not say that you wished to see elf magic?" So again, in this phrasing, she's saying, well, I don't understand magic, so maybe Tolkien didn't understand it exactly. But at the same thing, she's saying that magic is used for both light and dark. But from her perspective, the way it's phrased, she's basically saying they shouldn't be compared. They're not the same thing. He's calling it the deceits of the enemy versus like magic. So I don't know. I just found that really interesting. Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, it's almost like she's just like, this is normal for me. Like I'm just a magical being. It's not anything different for me. I guess it would be for you, little one, who, you can't do cool things like I can, sucker. You little muggle, I guess, to go to Harry Potter ways. Like, I don't know. But yeah, that's a good point. So Sam does wish to see, and he chooses to get up there and take a peek and take a gander, and he sees some pretty dark stuff, like we're talked about. So the first thing that he sees is Frodo with a pale face lying fast asleep under a great dark cliff, which is a premonition of Shelob's attack on Frodo, as we know that like later on in the book, chapter I guess 2 Towers in the books version, we have that whole interaction where Frodo, Sam, and Gollum go up into the Shelob's lair. Gollum attacks Sam and Gollum are fighting, and Frodo goes on ahead by himself and obviously gets attacked by Shelob. And so that's what he's seeing there, with Frodo lying pale-faced, again, when thinking maybe he's already dead. If this is probably what he's feeling right now as he's seeing this, like, oh, Frodo dies in the future. That sucks. I didn't think I was going to see that. But then he sees another vision of himself actually going along a dim passage and climbing an endless stair, which again is obviously pointing towards his rescue mission in the Tower of Cirith Ungol. As he moves up there, I love that part in the movie. He's like, "That's for my old gaffer." Yep.
But then again, we see him looking urgently, like he sees a vision of him looking urgently for something, but not knowing what it was. So again, the mirror is not completely clear either. Like it's kind of it'll give you snapshots of stuff, which lets your imagination wander. Like, is he looking for Frodo in this sense? Is he looking for the ring in this sense? Is he looking, like, what's he looking for? Is he just looking for his spices? I mean, probably not that, but
he knows
he's
where
looking
those
urgently
are.
for something.
He knows where those
Yeah,
are.
he's got those. Got those in his back pocket. He's got those. But then he also has this really good vision of really the end of the books where trees are falling and crashing to the ground, and he sees Ted Sandyman cutting down these trees. And I love how he just like says to himself, he's like, I wish I could get at Ted and I'd fell him. Like, I'd cut him down like a tree. And uh and then he starts seeing, but the trees, like, that's very metaphorical to just the growth of the Shire. Like, as the trees are growing up, but the trees are getting cut down, like the nature of everything. And again, Tolkien was, he loved trees. They're very sacred to him. And so obviously Sam, a gardener, feels like, okay, if trees are being cut down, that's not right. This is, something's going on. And so he starts saying, like, there's some devilry at work in the Shire. And he starts saying, I can't stay here. I must go home. They've dug up Backshot Row, and there's my poor old gaffer going down the hill with his bits of things on a barrow. And then it's just like he's like seeing all these things that he knows. Again, he's wanting to know what's going on back home, and he's seeing what's actually in the future, but feeling like it's in the present. Which, again, that would be like, how do you discern that, Seth? Like, if you were looking at the mirror, how would you tell, is this in the present or is this in the future?
You have no idea, because as Galadriel herself says, she's like, some things that are, some things that were, and some that may yet be. And it's like, I don't know. Well, I don't think it's already happened. Maybe, at least for the Frodo part, because Frodo's right next to him. As for the Shire part, maybe it already had. Like, there's no way to know. And this is why I think Sam, out of nowhere, and you'll say this eventually, I think, in the doc, but he's basically like, I gotta get home. I have to get home. And Galadriel's like, well, you didn't want to go before you saw this. Are you sure? Like, I don't think that's really what you want to do. It's just the mirror is making you feel these, that type of way.
Yeah, absolutely. Because he's seeing the scouring of the Shire, and he references that future chapter, and he's not sure if it's now, and so he's like, I got to get out of here. And but, like, as you mentioned, Galadriel reminds him of the danger of this mirror, and he's like, but no, I'll go home by the long road, Mr. Frodo, or not at all. But I hope I do go back someday. If what I've seen turns out true, somebody's gonna catch it hot. I love that. Somebody's gonna catch it hot.
Somebody's gonna catch it hot.
Like, I'm going home, whether it's right now or the long road, referencing, okay, after we drop the ring in Mount Doom, I'm coming back, and I'm coming back with fire that, if somebody's messing up with my trees, my garden, my people, my rosy cotton, they are going to get it, man. He's like, they're going to catch it hot. I love it.
There's just a couple of things that I just love about, like, just that little couple sentences, that little phrasing. So like you mentioned, no, I'll go home by the long road or not at all. He's basically saying, he's reaffirming his commitment to the quest, to Frodo, to his master. He's reaffirming that even after seeing, he's a hobbit. He had never hardly left, more than 10 miles outside of his home. And so everything that he's known and loved his whole life, he now knows is at risk based on what he saw in the mirror. And he's reaffirming, no, I need to stick it out. I need to complete the task. But then, like you said, somebody's going to catch it hot. Like, just the phrasing that Tolkien uses to separate Sam, who is the gardener, who is the servant, and Frodo, who is a scholar, and he's an elf friend. Just the way they speak is drastically different, but I love how blue collar the way Sam talks is, in a way. He's just like, somebody's going to catch it hot.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got that fire in him. He honestly, I think Sam would be from Eastern Kentucky. I think he fits the persona.
Okay.
I think so. It could be,
fair enough.
It's how they talk.
I don't know. I love it. So at this point, Frodo, it's Sam's like, all right, I don't want to see any more elf magic. And so Frodo is talking to Galadriel, and he asks Galadriel, do you advise me to look? And she's like, well, you didn't want to see elf magic before, but there still might be something you see here. And Galadriel actually, I don't know if this is on purpose by Tolkien, but he's from Galadriel's perspective, he says, I do not counsel you one way or another. I am not a counselor. Really? I am not a counselor. You may learn something, and whether you see what you see be fair or evil, that may be profitable, and yet it may not. Is Galadriel not a counselor?
So I actually have an answer for this question.
Okay.
Early in the book, in the Fellowship of the Ring, like Sam and Frodo see the Wood Elves, and they're talking with that guy. I forget his name,
Mm-hmm.
but uh, he said something along the lines of, "And do not ask for counsel of elves, for they will not give you a yes or a no, but
He
they'll only
says
speak in
they'll
riddles,"
say
or something
yes
like
and
that.
no at the same, or no, Frodo says
Yeah,
that to
yeah, yeah.
him. Frodo's
Yeah. So
okay.
that's what came to my mind. She's just like affirming what Frodo already knew about elves, and Frodo thinks this is like some like higher being of an elf, and it is, but she's still like, yes, no, do what you want to do.
Huh. Interesting.
That's my thought anyway.
No, that's a perfect take. But at the same time, like Elrond is a counselor,
Yeah.
and Celeborn even counsels him a little bit on like what paths to take. It was surprising to me that Tolkien threw that in there from Galadriel's perspective, because she's literally like aside from maybe Gandalf, she's the wisest being in Middle Earth at the time. So
Yeah.
she's
Yeah.
not a counselor, really? I don't know. Anyways, she basically tells Frodo, like, I wouldn't have brought you here if I didn't think you had the courage and bravery and wisdom to take a look. But I'm leaving that up to you. If you want to look, you can.
Yeah.
And what he sees is just like a whirlwind of these different things that are fascinating and with tons of little bits of lore in them. And so Tolkien says he saw a Twilight. I guess
Twilight.
that makes more sense. I was like, twilt, huh?
Twilt?
That's a new word. Oh boy. He saw a twilight land. Mountains loomed dark in the distance against a pale sky. A long gray road wound back out of sight. Far away, a figure came slowly down the road, faint and small at first, but growing larger inside and clear as it approached. Suddenly, Frodo realized that it reminded him of Gandalf. But the figure was not clad in gray, but in white, in a white that shone faintly in the dusk, and in its hand there was a white staff. And so, obviously, to you and I, we're like, hey, he's seeing Gandalf coming back from Valinor, right? Like, I was sent back for a time until my task is complete.
Yep.
But from Frodo's perspective, it's like, did I see Gandalf? Did I see Sauron? Like, what am I seeing? And that's got to be a complete mind trip to Frodo, who is thinking that Gandalf's dead, you know?
Yep.
And I'm trying to remember when they're reunited at the end of the Return of the King, if Frodo mentions something about this. I don't know why that's like buzzing in the back of my head, but maybe he doesn't. I don't know.
I mean, me, I couldn't tell you.
That's fair. We know this. But I don't know. It's just an interesting thing, because I think the mirror's trying to give him a little bit of hope. Like, this is Gandalf. He's returned and he's more powerful than before. But to Frodo, it's like, what? Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so then the mirror jumps and he sees Bilbo walking restlessly around his room with disordered papers everywhere. And then all of a sudden it swaps again, and he saw many swift scenes that Frodo knew had something to do with a great history. So Frodo doesn't understand everything he's about to see, but he knows it's significant for some reason. And Sam, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this kind of before we get to my theory portion. Just let me read these little bits and I want to hear what you think.
Yeah.
He saw the sea, then darkness. The sea rose and raged in a great storm. The black outline of a tall ship to the west. Then it shifted again. Then a wide river flowing through a populous city. And then it shifts again. Then a large ship with black sails and a banner bearing the emblem of a white tree. Smoke and fire and battle arose. Then into it, the mist, it passed away.
Yeah, so without reading ahead into yours, I mean, I feel like we're probably on the same vein here. This sounds to me like the reshaping of the world when Ilúvatar hears the cry from the Númenóreans and Eärendil, as he kind of he took his ship out to go plead on the case of the Valar to come do something to help him out. And so I'd say like when the sea rose and raged into a great storm, I would definitely say it's like the reshaping of the world and the fall of Númenor. The wide river flowing through a populous city. I mean, you put it in there, Osgiliath. I think that's probably very good, especially when you look at the banner of bearing an emblem of the white tree, um, hinting Minas Tirith, perhaps. But yeah, I think it's for sure the fall of Numenor and the reshaping the world. Though I don't know why Frodo would see that, like what benefit that is to him. But I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, you basically described what my theory was as well. And with the giant storm and the raging waves, like that's, in my opinion, that's the fall of Numenor and the coming of Elendil and his sons to Middle Earth, when he says like the tall ship out of the west, right? So I imagine that's what he saw. But then as it continues, it's almost like a sped up timeline of from when Elendil comes to Aragorn taking his rightful place as king. And I don't think at the time Frodo knows this, but he's basically looking at Aragorn after the Paths of the Dead, when he, Legolas, and Gimli, along with, you know, it's not actually the dead people anymore. He had already freed them in the books, but, you know, it's the Dunedain of the North, and then all the people from Pelargir and all these other places that they picked up to help him fight, and they jump out and help rescue Minas Tirith, and he displays the banner that Arwen had made for him. And then at the very end, when it says, then into the mist it passed away, talking about a tree, or a ship. And in my opinion, that is him leaving Middle Earth. He's having a premonition of him getting onto this small ship that is being swept away back into the west. So yeah,
it's a good thing to know too for him as he's sailing off into the west, that he can always just jump ship and swim back if he needs to,
because of Galadriel.
I couldn't help it. I was like just thinking about, because I was again, I'm like remembering that scene in the movies and the books, and how beautiful it is they're, you know, sailing off into the west, the Grey Havens, and then it just, for whatever reason, the Rings of Power popped in my head, and I was like, they're all like taking off their armor, looking at this bright light, and she's like, "No, I'm gonna jump off and swim back."
And then Frodo will be rescued by Sauron, and Sauron's gonna be like, "Yo, bro, I'm gonna jump in the water and save you, even though you're my mortal enemy." And like, hey, no hard feelings about destroying the Butterbur.
Yeah, no,
just lazy, arrogant, insignificant writing, bro. That is, oh my gosh. Rings of Power was trash. Absolute trash. The Sundering Sea, like literally, it's like the size of the Pacific Ocean, and she jumped off like, I don't know, Hawaii, like right before getting to Hawaii, and decided to swim back to California. Like, I know she's Galadriel, but come on now.
Yeah, that's anyway. Yeah, I feel like we should always make our episodes a crap fest of Rings of Power, but it just popped in my mind. I had to say it.
I like it. So anyways, I just find it interesting that Frodo is basically seeing like a sped up timeline of things that will come to be, but he has no idea how they're interconnected. And at this point, Frodo is basically like, all right, I've seen enough. That was weird. And he starts to pull away. But right as he starts to pull away, and I think Peter Jackson did a pretty good job of this scene in the movie, but right as he's about to pull away, the mirror goes completely black, and Frodo just looked into emptiness, which has got to be kind of weird. Like, imagine you're just in space and it's empty. There's nothing there. You can't see anything. And Frodo just is looking into emptiness, and then all of a sudden a single eye that grew larger and larger and larger until it, you know, just like filled up the whole mirror, and that's all he can see. And Tolkien says it's a fascinating description, but he says that Frodo couldn't cry out or withdraw his gaze, and if you remember in the movie, the ring's like pulling him down towards it. But this is how the eye is described, and again, I think Peter Jackson did a pretty good job of this. But it says, the eye was rimmed with fire, but itself was glazed, yellow as a cat's, watchful and intent, and the black slit of its pupil opened on a pit, a window into nothing.
The void.
Yeah. So it's like the eye wreathed in flame. I know, obviously, Tolkien didn't mean for Sauron to just be this big baddie eye the whole series, because Sauron.
The way you said that.
Because Sauron was, Sauron was still a being. He wasn't just a great eye.
Yeah.
So, but this description of it, I think, maybe even just this little description is how Tolkien or Peter Jackson was like, we can make that the big bad
Yeah.
guy of the entire story. So I find that a very fascinating description. It's very in depth, but it's also like oddly creepy and eerie.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think we see a few different occasions where Tolkien actually does a really good job of doing like kind of that horror thriller type of writing. Where I mean, he does it with the Black Riders, the Nazgul, obviously the Barrow
The
Downs.
Barrow-wights, yep.
Here, yeah,
Even like the Paths of the Dead.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's pretty creepy. But yeah, I agree. I think he does a good job of like, this isn't just like a random eye. This isn't just like there's something specific about this, and in the pit, like it opened up into a pit, a window into nothing. Like that just kind of makes me think of the void that he was supposed to be cast into, where Morgoth was, in the void.
Sure.
And yeah, pretty intense.
Interesting. So just picture yourself, you're Frodo, you're trying to pull away, you can't. This eye just keeps getting bigger and bigger until it like consumes all of your vision. And Tolkien says, then the eye began searching, and Frodo knew that he himself was something that the eye sought. But he knew that it couldn't see him yet unless he willed it. The ring then became heavy like a great stone, and his head was dragged toward the water. The mirror seemed to be growing hot, and curls of steam were rising from the water. He was slipping forward. And just the way Tolkien ends that with like the sentence it doesn't say he felt like he was slipping forward, or like he builds it up and he just says he was slipping forward. And it's like, that's terrifying. Just that description. He knows that he's being sought after by this giant eye. He probably can guess it's Sauron at this point, but he's just like completely consumed by it. And then he's slipping forward. Like it's almost inevitable.
Yeah. And again, you think of like the decision he made to actually look into the mirror, and like what good has he gotten from seeing it? I mean, I guess you get the hope of Gandalf, and if he can put all the pieces together, like your theory of Aragorn coming back and all that kind of stuff. But up to this point, like if I'm Frodo, I'm like, there's no hope for this quest from what I'm seeing. Like I'm not seeing anything helpful. In fact, I think this is more of a scare tactic, it feels like, from Sauron. Like he's taking control over this in the same way the Palantir would have done to Denethor or to Aragorn or to Pippin,
So I almost have I want to finish just kind of this little bit, and then I want to circle back to that. Sure. But with that, Galadriel actually just said, do not touch the water. And the vision ended like that. So she somehow managed to snap him out of this trance and entirely get rid of the vision just by saying that. So is that more elf magic? I don't know. But what I wanted to circle back to is the fact that Frodo looked. Was it for his benefit, or was it for Galadriel's benefit? Because this whole thing, it literally prompts Galadriel to be like, I know what you have seen. I see it too. It haunts me as well. And then she like pulls out, Nenya, this is the ring of adamant. And she talks about her ring. For Elrond wasn't permitted to speak of it, but I am indeed one of the bearers. And it's not just by wisdom and words that we protect our borders, basically saying like, I have a ring of power and he's searching for me too. But this whole thing sets up Galadriel to deny taking the ring from Frodo, because seeing the eye, just like Frodo's got to be pissing his pants, right? Like, this is way too big for a little hobbit from the Shire. This is way too grandiose for him to deal with. And so it's like right after this that he basically offers the ring to, well, now that I think about it, I know he does in the movie, but I almost feel like in the book that it's Sam that prompts it. And he says like, I wish you'd take the enemy's ring. I'd have to double check, but regardless, it kind of sets up Galadriel to be able to let go of this power that she genuinely desires, thinking that she'd be able to use the ring for good. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah.
I'll let you look that up real quick.
Yeah. So here we go. So this is where, you are wise and fearless and fair, Lady Galadriel, said Frodo. I will give you the One Ring if you ask for it. It is too great a matter for me. Galadriel laughed with a sudden clear laugh. wise the Lady Galadriel may be, she said, it here she has met her
Matter
matching
matching courtesy. Yeah.
But then she, Dark Lord, you have a queen. Not dark, but beautiful. Terrible as the morning and the night. Fair in the sea and the sun. And then she says she passes the test. So, yeah, this was right after that. But, yeah, it is interesting. I think she was curious what the ring bearer would see. I think she was really curious about if it would coincide with what she's seen, if she'd gain any more intel. Because I assume, like, the mirror, it's not just whoever's seeing it sees it. Like, she could see it while standing off to the side, I imagine. Because she says, I know what you saw. I see it as well.
Sure.
But I don't know.
That's interesting. Yeah. I don't know. When Frodo looks, like you said, he doesn't really, like, why would it bring him hope or courage, right? If he could decipher what the mirror was trying to tell him, with Gandalf coming back as Gandalf the White and Aragorn going to, bring it full circle with the Paths of the Dead and the Battle of the Pelennor and everything, then yeah, that would bring hope. But that stuff makes no sense to him. The only thing that made sense was this giant eye wreathed in flame. So I don't know. Do you think that how do I phrase this, that Sauron would have been able to see him if he would have willed it? Like, if Frodo, like, what would Frodo have had to do for Sauron to be able to see him? Because Frodo's the bearer of the One Ring at this point. So does he just say, like, mentally, does he just put forth the power of the ring to try to communicate with Sauron, and then all of a sudden Sauron knows exactly where he is? Does Sauron know that he was being observed by Frodo? Like, does he have a sixth sense to be like, oh, something's looking at me, where is it? Because Tolkien says it's like a searching eye, that he was looking for something. Is that just a turn of phrase that, Sauron's looking for Frodo nonstop because Frodo has a ring, or does he sense what's going on in this moment?
Yeah, that's probably something we're never going to have an answer for, unfortunately, but it's a good question to ask. And I think there's the fact that it was so menacing, and that it was so, like, he was slipping forward, like, it had power over him in the moment. And I mean, the mirror, like you mentioned, could be kind of its own being. Well, so is the ring. The ring is also like its own being, and all it wants is to get back to his master, as we know. That's what Gandalf says. And so if the ring is able to see, oh, there's my master in the water right there, like, we're going to go down there. He's going to bring Frodo down into that. And so I think maybe it's more so the ring that has some of this to play too. I think it is indicative of, obviously, Sauron's just constantly watching and looking for Frodo, looking for the ring, and the ring is trying to go back to him. And so that's why it's kind of pulling him down into the mirror. I don't think Sauron probably knew he was observed. I think it's not like a Palantir where it's like a FaceTime. This is more so like, again, I think magic, because that could have been at any point, like him with a searching eye. That could be in the moment, that could be in the past, in the future, as she says. Like, I mean, it's just constant, right? What Sauron is doing, he's searching for Frodo, and so maybe that's just more so that. I don't know.
I almost wonder if it's, you remember when, like, Frodo puts on the One Ring instead of destroying it before Gollum jumps on his back and stuff. I wonder, because in that moment, if I remember correctly, and it's been a while since I read it, but I'm pretty sure Frodo, like, feels all of Sauron's, like, attention just shift right to him. So I wonder if it's almost a premonition of that moment.
Yeah, it could be. I still also I need to figure out how Sam can wear the One Ring in, like, well, I think it was like the Shelob's lair, or not Shelob's lair. He wore the ring in Cirith Ungol without there being any issues. But then as soon as Frodo puts it on, like, everything's drawn to it. I need to figure. I'd probably need to do some more digging on that one. But yeah, it could very well be a premonition of that. I'm sure.
Yeah. It might also be that Sauron was so distracted by everything that, the allies, if you will, were putting forth at his gates, that it just distracted him long enough to that he didn't really notice Sam.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I was
trying to find that spot where you said here, but
I could be wrong. I don't know. It's hard to dig those up on the spot.
I have come, he said, but I do not choose now to do what I came to do, and I will not do this deed. The ring is mine. And suddenly he set it upon his finger. He vanished from Sam's sight. Sam gasped, but he had no chance to cry out, for at that moment many things happened. Something struck Sam. That's obviously Smeagol. And far away, as Frodo put on the ring and claimed it for its own, even in Samath Noir, the very heart of his realm, the power in Barad-dûr was shaken, and the tower trembled from its foundation, and its proud eye, bitter crown. The Dark Lord was suddenly aware of him, and his eye piercing all shadows, looked across the plain to the door that he had made, and the magnitude of his own folly was revealed to him in a blinding flash, and all the devices of his enemies were at last laid bare. Then his wrath blazed in consuming flame, but his fear rose like a vast black smoke to choke him.
Dang.
For he knew his deadly peril and threat upon which his doom now hung. But yeah.
Man,
Kinda
that
crazy.
is so well written. And it's, I don't know. Maybe that's not what Frodo's seeing, but I can imagine that once he put on the ring, he was like, oh, I've seen this movie before. Like, ah, crap.
Yeah. Yeah. It's nuts.
Well, that was fun. I really enjoyed that episode. It's fun to, I know
Same.
it's such a small little snippet in the book, and I don't know, going through it line by line and picking up on all the little lore. I never really picked up before that, you know, it was probably the fall of Numenor and Aragorn coming to the Pelennor to help rescue Minas Tirith. Like, all those little things just come together, and it's fascinating.
Absolutely is. Yeah. Then again, you have so much appreciation for Tolkien's work when you start understanding how much more of it there really is.
Yeah.
Because like you said, you can read something 6 times and have no idea what it means. But if you read through, again, the Fall of Numenor and the Silmarillion, or you go through First, Second Age stuff, you start making these connections that Tolkien wanted to do, because he cared more about that than Lord of the Rings. He really did. That was his prized possession, was, you know, those 3 major stories, Beren and Luthien and the Fall of Numenor and the Fall of Gondolin. And so like he's like, I want you guys to go find it. He's like, here's a little snippet, go find it. Like, he's kind of putting these like, you need to see what else I have.
Well, if you remember, I'm pretty sure Tolkien was rejected in public. He wanted to publish the Silmarillion with the Lord of the Rings, and I'm pretty sure, and I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he wanted to do this, and it was rejected by the publishing house. And so you can't help but think that, not that he retroactively wrote these little Easter eggs in there, if you will, but he was still so obsessed with the greater history that it's like it flows through all of his writings. And so it's cool that even, I mean, imagine reading Lord of the Rings for the first time before the Silmarillion was published, and you're like, what in the world are all these references? I mean, it's mind-blowing. Thankfully, we live in a time where, you know, I can throw on the audiobook and listen to Andy Serkis read me, you know, the Silmarillion. So
yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah. Well, this has been a lot of fun. This has been a really good episode, a little Easter egg deep dive into the Mirror of Galadriel. So thanks for coming up with this idea. Next week, we're probably going to be jumping into some lore that Treebeard himself knows. Fangorn, the oldest Ent that we know of, and just some of his ideas, some thoughts, and some cool, fun banter between him and the hobbits. It's gonna be fun. I've been doing a lot of work and putting that together, and I just love that character. I mean, we'll talk plenty about it later on, but
it's an exciting one for sure.
Yeah, definitely. But as you know, now is the time where Gondor calls for aid. We are breaking in the halls of Medicel and shouting, Gondor calls for aid. So will you, Rohan, answer? So if you enjoyed the podcast, please light a beacon of your own by sharing it with some fellow friends and fans. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave us that Christmas present review of 5 stars wherever you listen to your podcasts. And please share your Tolkien story or thoughts on the podcast, or maybe what questions do you have for Seth and I that we can go deep dive, and what are some Easter eggs you'd like to have explained as you read through Lord of the Rings? Whatever it is, send it our way. We will gladly read through that on the podcast, and then maybe even make an entire episode about that. Go ahead and make sure to check out our Well and Comforts YouTube channel as well, where this video and other videos have been uploaded as well. But you can email us with any questions, thoughts, stories at wekpodcast@gmail.com. Like I mentioned, next week we're jumping into another Easter egg with Treebeard and his knowledge of lore and his poetry that puts the hobbits to sleep. I can't wait. Should be a good time. But we thank you for joining us for some Well and Comforts, and until next time, we bid you a very fond farewell.
That was fun. Good. I like that one. That was a lot of fun.
That was fun. That was a good time.
Real quick, like, we need to both smile in the camera so that I can get a thumbnail. Just like look right at your camera for like 5 seconds and smile.